سلامات كورات كميل لهم HR6600 زبال لحد عبي ريزولوشن اللو تيبل زتقبر أبو نا أمريكا كونغرس بزوح تقامي زخوان تحسطو زلو إيو أقداس إيو عبي مكالسي سنديو انتوخونا أبزي دياسبورا أب فلان مونايسيس زلو محبر السونا بزوح تخرج زهاولو نوعو زتقمو نقرات قالستات يكايدلن أقول يكون نزبل نقر اللومو أبزو قدايزي سفح نتفت زقور زلو أنا أسي نزرار بلنا كما يكون زلو تصادفونا أو زي نقورو قالسي خصاب كندي نايك خيدلو أقداسو نتخطا أيو زبل ميكي تقراي نابزي استوديو عدي ما يلهو بزعبا زو قدايزي مبرهي خبرنا أيو كما يكون كم زلو تصادفونا من أسي ما كما يكون هنكاسا أصخم زلو ميكي تقراي قواد حال مصاها
يغني لي داري دستحاوي نا سقاتي ماتش ستافرون تي 14 ساعات سرحوا زلهم اني دبس حزبنا نخدكونو يغني لك ولي دالي ثانك يو حواي
قرم بطعمي يمسكنك أبزي HR6600 House Representatives Resolution EU تحستو توسنا بتين تخنا خفنا يولنا يفلت إيو تعمل قداس مخانو انتو هنا أبزي زدلي ناي حبر السبنا زدلي تصادفو كم تزدلي يكونن اتم حماقات صلاتنا دما انصارو زنقاسقسو زلو زغورو زلو صعري سفحيو ስለዚ ነዚ ዝምልከት እንታይ እዩ ትዘድሊ ኣብ ምንታይ እዩ ሰብ ክረባረብ ዘሎ ንመንእሰይ ንዓበይቲ ኩሎም ዞም ወከልቶም ፖለቲከኛታት ዝዓዲ ዘሎ ክረኽቡ ትደልዮም ኣብዚ ነዚ ደፍ ብደንቢ ከንቀሳቀስ ዝኽእል ሞቢላይዝ ዝገብር ዝኽእል መልእኽቲ ክትሕልፍ ኢለ ይዓዲመካ ስለዚ ኣብ ምንታይ ኩነታት ምንታይ ደረጃ እዩ ዘሎ እንታይ ዓይነት ተሳትፎ እዩ ዘድልዮ እዚ ጉዳይ እዚ
ጽبق ما يغني لي እንደገና خلي دلي تي HR6600 House Resolution 6600 ማለት እዩ እዚዩ መጀመርታ አቶም ብውሽጣውሽጢ ኣብ ደገ መጽዮም زي زارو زلو ግን ብውሽጢ ብጉልበቶምን ብሞዮምን ዝጽዕሩ ዘለው ኣሕዋትና ተጋሩ ከምኡውን ንትግራይ ደገፍቲ ኮይኖም ኣሜሪካውያን ዝጽዕሩና ዘለው ናቶም ምስጋና ክነቅርበሎም ኣድላይ ስለ ዝኾነ ተይረሳሕዎ እዚኣ ታንኪሁሎም ይደሊ ካው ቀጽልና እቲ መጀመርታ ከም ዝበልካዮ በተ ሚድያታት TMH ደደቢት ሚድያ ካለተት እውን ያው ከናቅሕዎ ጀሚሮም ኣለው እዮም ይሰርሕሉ ኣለው እዮም ግን እቲ መጀመርታ ክርዳእና ዘሎ እዚ ቢል እዚዩ መበገሲኡ እንታይ እዩ ተብ ኢትዮጵያ ዝኒሄ ዕግርግር በተለይ ድማ ናይ ትግራይ ኩነት ዘጀመረ እዩ ኣብ ትግራይ ብህዝብና እንታይ ከም ተፈጸመ ዘይተነግረብ ትግራይ እምበር ዘይተገብረ ነገር የለን እዩ እዚዩ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ መንግስቲ ናይ ኤርትራ መንግስቲ ሓፈሻዊ ኮይኖም ናብ ትግራይ መጽኦም ኣሓትና ደፊሮም ኣደታትና ደፊሮም ህዝብና ቀቲሎም ቤት ትምህርታት ናይ ሆስፒታላት ዕንዮም ህዝቢ ምግቢ ከይኣትዎ ሓደ ዓመትን 4 ወርሕን ዓጽዮሞ እዚ ነገር እዚ ጠጠው ክብል እንድሕር ኮይኑ HR6600 ሰፖርት ዝግበረሉ ምክንያት እዩ እቲ ሃገር ካብ ኩናት ጠጠው ይውፃእ ብሄረ ብሄር ኩሉ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ዘሎ ናብ ጠረጴዛ መጽኡ ይህን ኢሉ ጸገም ይፍታሕ እዩ እዚ ንክግበር እቲ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ እዩ ዝብል ተቃሉ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ኖርዘርን ኢትዮጵያ ከልተሎ ንትግራይ ዝትንክፍ እዩ እዚ እንታይ እዩ ተጀነሳይድ ተፈጸመ ብዘር ዓንየት ምጥፋእ ዝተጀመረ ነገር ጠጠው ይብል ይዝብል ዘሎ ኢትዮጵያ ምግቶም ዘይድግፍዎ ናይ ኢትዮጵያውያን እንታይ ዝብል ዘለው ንኢትዮጵያ ሳንክሽን ይኸጥፋ እዩ ኢኮኖሚ ዝብል ዘለው ኣይኮነን ንኢትዮጵያ ኣይኮነን ሳንክሽን ባይ ዘ ወይ ዝኾነ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ካምፓኒታት ናይ ዓለም ካምፓኒታት ናይ ኢትዮጵያ መንግስቲ ወይ ናይ ኤርትራ መንግስቲ ኣብዚ ኩናት ዘይተሳተፉ ኣይትንክፎምን እዩ እዚ ግልጽ ኸውን ኣለዎ ማለት እዩ ምክንያቱ ዘጨርብርዎ ዘለው ህዝቢ ከይፍርም ኣይ እዚ ንኢትዮጵያ ኢኮኖሚ ክዕን እዩ ኣይዕንን እንዲያው ናይ ዝዓኒ ዘሎ ኢትዮጵያዊ ውግእ ናይ ትግራይ ኢና ንትኩር ዘለና ንሕና ተጋሩ ስለ ዝኾንና እምበር ሓፈሻዊ ነቲ ኢትዮጵያ ነቲ ሃገር ኩናት ጠጠው ኣቢሉ እቲ ኢኮኖሚ ዝዓኒ ዘሎ 27 ዓመት BPRDF ዝጠንከረ ኢኮኖሚ ወታደራዊ ሓይሊ ኣብዚ ናይ ሒዚ 16 ወርሕታት ኣብ ትግራይ ጀነሳይድ ተፈጸመሉ ብኡ ሰንኪ ኩናት ተወሊዑ ህዝቢ ትግራይ መልሲ ክህብን ከሎ መብቱ ህዝቡ ኣማራጭ ስለዘይተውሃቦ ናብ ቃልሲ ኣትዩ ማለት እዩ ተገዲዱ እዩ እዚውን ንሕና ክነጋውሖ ኣለና ሓደ ካልኣይ ናይ መቃልስትና ወላ ብድኽመት ሓፈሻው እንተረኢና ኣሎም ኦሮሞ ሒዚ ብዙሓት ብሶሻል ሚድያታት ኣቅሪብና ናይ ተጋሩ ና ኦሮሞ ታሽሙ ናይ ኣድቮኬሲ ዓይነት ብሓደ ክንናበብ ንሳቶም እውን ሒዚ ብናቶም ኮሚኒቲታት ኣሜሪካ ሙሉእ ንክፍርሙ ኣምፕሊፋይ ክገብርዎ ሃሽታግ ንክጥቀምሉ ኣሚናዮም ተቃሊስናሉ ቦታት ንሳቶም እውን ከስታውስ ይደሊ ኤርትራውያን እውን ነው የምሳና ሒዚ ዝሰርሑ ዛዕባ ቢል እዚዩ ይሕግዙና ኣለው ኣብታት ስምዒትና ታሽሙ ድሓን ንጠንቀቕ ምክንያቱ ብጣዕሚ ማለትስ ክትገልጾ ይትኽእልኒ ኢኻ ዝኒሄ ግፍዕታት በተለይ ናይ ዝሓለፈ ሰሙን ዝረአየና ኣብዚ ደምቅና ዝረአየናዮ ወዲሰብ ማለት ኣብ ሓወት ኢኻ ቃፂልካስ ብዳቦ ብንጀራ ክበልዖ ኢልካ ክትዛረበሉስ እዚ ዓይነት ግፍዒ መሪር እዩ ግን ክነጋውሖ ኣለና እቲ HR 6600 ምስኡ ዝኸይድ እዩ ሶ መጀመርታ ክንፈልጦ ዘለና ኣብ ኣሜሪካ ዘሎ ክፍርመሉ ከም ዘለዎ ኣብ ሓደ ገዛ ንኣብነት 5 ሰብ እንተልዮም ካብቶም 4 ሰባት ካብ 13 ዕድሚኦም ንላዕሊ እንተኮይኖም ኣትዮም ብሓደ ድራሻ ይመሎም ግን ናይ ባዕሎም ገይሮም ንክፍርምሉ ክንሰርሕ እዚ ኣለና ካልኣይ ኣብ ዘለናዮ ጎረባብትና ኣከባቢና ኣሜሪካውያን በተለይ ኣድላይ ዝኾኑሉ ተኣዩ ንሃቶም ድምፂ ካብ ናትና ዝበለፀ ፀዓዱ ድምፆም ይስማዕ እዩ ፀለምቲ ታሽሙ ኮሚኒቲ ዓበይቲ ዘለዎ ድምፆም ይስማዕ እዩ ዘይግነቶም ኣሜሪካውያን ዝኾኑ ኮንስቲትዩንስ ማለት ንሃቶም ወከልታ ዝኾኑ 435 ሃውስ ኦፍ ሬፕሬዘንታቲቭ ወይ ድማ ኮንግረስመን ኮንግረስውመን ኣሜሪካ ኣለውና እዮም ማለት እዩ በብስቴቱ ብትሳይዙ ናይቲ ክፍለ ሃገር ሪኢኻ እዚ ስለ ዘሎ ንኣቶም እውን ስፖርት እዚዩ ሓግዙና ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ትግራይ እንተኢልና ግን ትግራይ ንባዕሉ ከይን የምናልባት ከይነዳኽሞ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ከም ፀገም እኒሄ እቲ ናይ ባዕልና ፐርሶናላይዝ ጌርናኻ ኣብ ትግራይ ከባቢ ተባሃለ ብዘር ዓልየት ከምዚ ገይሮም ህዝብና ይጥፍዎ ኣለዉ እዚ ቢል ግን እቲ ኩናት ጠጠው ኣቢሉ ነቲ ግፍዒ ዝበፅሖ ህዝብና ርዳእታ ንክረክብ እዩ እቲ ቀንዲ ዕላሙ ሒዚ እዚ ክንግብል ተለና ሕፅር ከብሎ ሰራዊ እቲ ዘረባ ብዙሕ ከይንውሕልካ ምንታ እቲ እዚ ቢል እዚ እንድሕር ንሕና ሰክሰስ ብጣዕሚ እንድሕር ክነጋውሖ ኮይና ሰክሰስፉል ክንገብር ተኮይና ኣብ በይንትና ጥራይ ንሕሰብ ተጋሩ በይንትና ፈሪምና በይንትና ኣይንወፆን እዚ ተጋሩ ክርደና ኣለዉ ስለዝኾነ ሙሉእ ኣሜሪካውያን መሳርሕትና ድዮም ቤተክርስትያን ንኸዶ ድዩ እናኸድና ዳሕራይ እዚ ፔቲሽን ክነፍርም ተለና BSJT ኣብቲ ዌብሳይቶም እኒሄ እዩ እቲ ሊንክ ማለት እዩ ኣብኡ ሊንክ ንሱ ሒዝና ትትኽክለኛ ዝፈረሙ እውን ክንዎም ኣለና መብዛሕትኡ ሎሚ ቴክኖሎጂ ሃይ ስለ ዝኾነ ኣብ ቼንጅ ORG ኣትዮም ተጋሩ ንኣና ዝጠቅም እዩ ስፖርት HR 6600 ኢሎም ለጢፎም ኣብኡ ኣምሓሩ ይጥቀሙልና ኣለዉ ሒዘኡ ዝኣትዉ ዘለዉ እውን ውፁእ እናበልና ኣብ ትዊተር ፖስት ገይሮሞ ሳይንስ ገበሩ ወርኺብናዮም ንሳቶም እውን ብመስመር ኣቲና ኣረዲናዮም ነስተኻኽለሉና እንታይ ክብል እዮ እዚኡ ሓድሽ ሰለስተ ናይ ዛዕባ HR 66 ንኸውድቕዎ ዝቃለስዎ ብቼንጀር ORG ዘውፅዎ ነገር ኣሎ ኢትዮጵያ ስፖርት ንግበራ እሞ ናይ ትግራይ TPLF እንዮም ዝብሉ ናይ 27 ዓመት ኣፍሪስዎ እዩ እቲ ናይ ሕጊ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ 95 ዝተመስረተ ንኢትዮጵያ ዘውድቕ እዩ ብሄረ ብሄር ስለ ዝብል ሰለስተ ዓመት እዚ ከዓ ናይ ኢትዮጵያ መንግስቲ ኣይኮነ ናይ ኦሮሞ ሓይሊ እዩ ናይ ኦሮሞ መንግስቲ ዘጥፎ ዘሎ ኢሎም ሳልሳይ ሓዳሽ ዘውፅዎ ኣላ ሒዚ 2 መዓልቲ ዝገበረት ማለት እዩ ኣብ ቼንጀር ORG ስለዚኡ ንሳቶም ተኣዮም እቲ ፔቲሽን ምስ ረኸቡ እቲ ናትና ዝግብኦ ዝነበሩ ናብ ካሊእ ንሶም ተቐቢሎም ንኣቶም ይጥቀሙሉ ኣለዉ ንኸውድቕዋ እዛ ጉዳይ እያ እዚኣ ንምግባር ግን እቲ ናይ ኣብ ህዝብና ዘምፅእ ዘሎ ጭፍጨፋ ንክቕፅል እምበር ነቲ ሃገር ክጠቅም ኢሎም ስለዘይኣምኑ እዮም ክብል ይደሊ
ናቶም ፍሉጥ እዩ እንታይ ይገብሩ ከም ዘለዉ ብጣዕሚ ማለት ነውርታት ዝኩሉ ወንጀል ክሰርሑ ዘይሓፈሩ ደውዚታት ክሰንፉ ኮይኖም ግን እቲ ናትና ሰብ ግን እንታይ እንተን ዕንቅፋት ዝኾንኦ ዘለዋ እተን ትኩረት ክገብረለን ዝግብኦ ናብታ ዝበልካዮ ዌብሳይት ምስ ኣተወ ክገብረን ዝግብኦ ናብኣተን ንምእታው ዘሎ ነገራት ከዓ ብደንቢ ኣብ ኩሉ ዘሎ ቦታ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ ሓደ ካብ ኣሜሪካ ወፃኢ ዘሎ ሰብ ክፍርሞ ይኽእል ድዩ ካልኣይ ተን ስቴፕ ሰብኣ ዘለዋ ብደንቢ ክላሪቲ ዲቨሎፕ ክንገብር
ፅቡቅ እሞ እታ ሳይን ሂዚ ባርኮድ ሰሪሕና ኣለና ኢና እቲ ባርኮድ እውን ብትዊተር ፌስቡክ ኢና ነካፋብሎ ዘለና ማለት እዩ እተን ዝፍረማ ግን ያው እንታይ እያ ናይ SJT ዝገለፅኳ ሓፈሻዊ ኣብኡ ኢና እስካብ ናብ 20 ገለታት ኣከባቢና ሒዚ ነቀራርቦ ዘለና ግን ካብኡ ንላዕሊ ክኸይድ ኣለዎ በሃልቲ ኢና እዚ ክኸውን እንተሎ ግን እታ ሊንካ SJT ኣብ ጉግል ኣትዮም ንኣብነት SJT ትግራይ ኢሎም ተፅሒፎማ ክትመፅያ ታታ ዌብሳይት ሒዚ ኣምሳኣተው support HR 6600 እያ ትብል ንሳ ክሊክ እንተገይሮም نافتا تاعت وسد ناي شمم ناي بومشم أدراشهم إيميلهم سلكي يدل requirement يكونن إذن شم أدراشا إيميل أدلاية كاوت الطرفات دبدابة تصحيح في الزجاجي تحرى يفتح متشرشة تحت عنكس أول ليلم سمت يوم زجوروا تا petition كاتا شمم نافتا ناي كل فري موازنة تحوسنا إذا قلت له إنك أنا تعليق كنسا أبز زارو هزتات أبز community ككافلو ولا كاو بتويتر حيزي سيشن نافترنا ترينين هبلنا أنا مالت تجارب أوقاتهم تستاتفهمنا تي حد إياك متيم حطنا مرسون نزاجنا كن تحاور نكارسلنا أنا تفعل مدابات نهيو ناي لقى ستغراي سهال نهيو ناي جزات غار نهيو good morning تغراي ونهيو خالتون بعنا خفيتنا بزي كان سمات ببي خالنا يو ساعات نتحاور لنا أنا تباركود كحيزنا أبنت أب زمزن هي عربي أو واشنطن دي سي سلام أصلفني أول زلين كذي حيزنا موبايل لنا كلنا سمارت فون سلزخوني تسب أو زمز ستاتف فريمكم داو زي فرم تالي مفر ساين كجوروا كنك على سالنا أو لس أنجلس ون ناي سلسة معلتي خلتها معلت سلام أصلف سلسة معلتي حبشاون نك على رول نفعل التجارب زخون زلوا عربي زي 10 شمنته 10 شعاتي أو لس أنجلس كاليفورنيا نركب زلنا ون زي أنا جرزيا خنت نكرر لنا إذا جزية دما وساني يقول الحين إحنا خندفع زلنا ون ني Congresswoman Speaker of the House actually نانسي بولوسي بخبري نادولنا بخمسين سام زجار وزي كنا نحنا إذا عبيل نافت فلور فول فوت نختركب أمسنا نابلنا ون ريتش أوت نجبر لنا إيميل كنسحب لنا سلك خندول لنا زيون ناتاسل كون الزجاجنا وشتاوشتي نكافة لنا هنا زي حزوا سبات اليوم ون نخنه هوام ببزلوا وستيت ون نهاتهم constituent communicate نخجورو ندحر information ندحر زي ولا ممكن حجزون مدبات حيزنا نصرح لنا هنا زي أجين تزارينا ترايزي كونس نتخالي بهيرات ونا إثيوبيا زنيه نايم حارة بهير يكرتا قولي يزيد أيدي كيف نزور زلمبا خالي بهير إثيوبيا زنيه حيزي وروم حيزي معات نيرم أينو نايوني لمنا تويتر مالتي أينو نايوني حيزي نعاتم أنبيبنا أردينا زيد أنت هايس أجمع دوا زيكو كونات أطويبل هزير داتا كويس بعض خالي inclusive كل سب حفشاو إثيوبيا زل حزبي موتي كبر كويات الزنا زياد أجمع بلاني لهم ثم أرومون amplify يقول ولو توصل إيرتراويان ون أكتيفيست حاوسنا يمبلنا هنا سلازيو كنفرم أنت لنا جين أبزخون بوتا خيرنا أين فرم تجارب بعرسنا زيا ناتنا أيالنا النفاطم تجاربنا وشنا خيرهم النوعية فبس ساعات زيو أنت إنك أزلنا تأيو أنا بزح خبراتنا إلى النيجن بحصير تأيه تجارب خيرهم مس بلسقنا صرحو أبدا أسبرانيو يميز نساتهم مول خير دانا جورنا كنت نقول زلنا تأيو تاناي SJT زلازل لخو دقاقي متايا SJT ياو كريات يروازلو حفشاوي SJT ناي منجس تغراي وكالي كونن ناي من وكالي كونن ناي حفشاوي دمسي تغراي لخوون TMH ميديا از ميديا ناي دمس خوون تباهيلو هزب تغراي زدقفو هزب تغراي زقامو حق الناس زلو حق الناس سرح تن ميدياات ناي تغارون حفشاو خوينا نسرح لن زلنا كم تفضل حيزي حد حدا زي بسايبر باور تغراي بإنجليزي قانقاتاتو نتمنى أسي تقمنا نقر تأيو دموز يكون نسرح زلنا نحن نجنزب يكون نسرح نمن دمس هزبنا تجفن أفكار تعاصو بحافشة وبجاملة خنقتلك عين هرم دوصل له هزبنا إذا HR6600 جن كنا تقول الآخر ده نازل لون تاعي تقندي atrocity genocide تقال genocide لختوص خندي تقالي سوم الأيام إذا ده genocide تاعي declare تغيرهم ما إذا بيلزي أنت يتكون تقرأي تسرحي بجنسايد بحقي نخطيه ثم وينجل فصم نحن أكو TDF وينجل فصم يناولو propaganda حلف ولا وديكي إذا أنت خوين ما نحن تجمع بلان من قصة تقرأي تقبلوا وأيو نحن أول أبدأ أسبراز لنا دقيفنا يلا نقبله دحراي تقيف السرحي بحقي تأيغنا نوزل خالي من ما يكونن إذا ريبورت دما ناب هاوس كده تصديق هاوس كأو ناب سنة كده ناب وايت هاوس كده تفرمت لا within 180 days يعتمد تيناي ستيت ديبارتمنت زل نجارات تصنيعه إذا نجار زيا صديقة ناب مويا نخطو علون كمون توسخي إتي نت من قست زدق فوزل له هاجراتون تتقص على وين هاجرات كمني أمارات كمني تركي كمني تشاينا راشا أو زي شمان أتتقيسوا على يو نسات نقول أطاو قبلا مسارعات ناوي تبقى خيمتس زخوينات زيت أطاو كله حتصير جزء حفشاوي كاون دكنا استخرلو أبتقرأ إذا أنا عنوتات من عالم من قستاتون جنساين ديكلير كوينا ናይ ብሕጊ ብናይ ዩናይትድ ኔሽን ሕጊ ተኣሽሙ እያ ሬስፖንሲቢሊቲ ኣላ እያ እዛ ሬስፖንሲቢሊቲ እያ እቲ ዲስትሮይ ተገብረ ነገር ሪቢልድ ንክገብር እቲ ህዝብና ትራማ ዝኾነ ብኩሉ ነገር ስፖርት ተገይሩ ናብ ዝነበሮ መሬቱ ንክምለስ ናይ ዓለም በይንትና ዘይኮንና እና ተጋሩ ትግራይ ክንጭገናት ዘዕነው ወሲ ዓለሙ እውን ናይ ባዕሉ ገንዘብ ወፅኡ እቲ ዝተሰርሐ ግፍዕታት ኣጋዊሑ እቲ ዝነበረ ትክልታት ክትክል በይንትና ይኮንና ክንትኸሎ ትግራይ ተገብረ ብቢልዮናት ቁፅር እዮም ወና እዚኣተን እውን ትሕግዘና ስለ ዝኾነት እየታ እዚኣ ክነትኩረላ ዝደለይናታ HR6600 ሓፈሻዊ ግን ኢንፎርሜሽን ዘይሓስኩም እዚዩ ናይ ቋንቋ እውን ንእሽተይ ሕፅረት ዘለዎም ኣሕዋትና እንተልዮም እውን ፀገም የለን ንሕና ጎኖም ኮይና ክንሕግዞም ክንሰርሕ ኢና እዚዩ ናይ ኩልና ስራሕ ስለ ዝኾነ ያው ቴመች እውን ከምዚ ገይርና እቲ ፕሮግራም መሓስኩም የቀኒየለይ
ገረም የቀኒየለይ ሚኪ ትግራይ ቁሩብ ድማ እዚ ናይ ትግርኛ መልእክትካ ዘይሰምዑ ገለ ይህሉ ናይ ዝዓዲ ዝነበሩ እዞም ሰከንድ ጀነሬሽን ገለ ዝበሃል እሞ በጋጣሚ ንስኻ ማልታይ ሊንጓል ስለ ዝኾንካ ፅቡቅ መልእክቲ ክትሕልፍ ትኽእል ኢኻ ስለዚ ኣብዚ በዚ ብኦ ኣቢልና ክንሰግር ብእንግሊዝኛ እንታይ እንትን ዘድልያ ዘለዋ እንታይ እዩ ዝመስልቲ ተሳትፎ ናይቶም መናእሰይ ኣብ ምንታይ ከተኩሩ ኣለዉ ዝብል ምእንታን ክትከይድ ማለት እዩ I just want you to repeat what you said in Tigrinya in English for the convenience of the youngsters we have around so that they can hear your message very well.
Of course. Thank you very much. Of course, for those of you who, I'm going to start with Tigrayan diaspora, the young Tagaru who have inspired us from day one. I wish that the inspiration that I've seen was in a different way, that it wasn't to see because our brothers and sisters that we watch in the cliff of Tigray being slaughtered, shot at, and the derogatory and inflammatory languages used by the Ethiopian federal forces, by the Eritrean forces, by the Amhara regional forces, and FANO, which in my personal opinion should be designated as a terrorist organization. This does not reflect on TMH or anybody. This is my personal opinion. FANO has been using machete to destroy and chop off human beings. We saw 3 days ago a video surfaced, Tigrayan ethnics being burnt alive, and emphasis used such as should we use bread or injera, which is a common bread in Ethiopia in addition to the regular bread. I cannot emphasize enough. So we have the bill HR6600, House Resolution 6600. This bill simply states Ethiopia's Stability, Peace, and Democracy Act. Simple as that. Does not say Tigray, does not say Amhara, does not say Oromia, does not say Afar, Benishangul. I can go on and on. There are about 9 or 10 different states in Ethiopia. The atrocity and the genocide against civilians in Tigray has taken place November 4th, 2020. Since then, electricity has been shut off, bank system has been shut off, internet system has been shut off, and there's no clean water as a result of this description that I gave. 2.8 million people internally has been displaced in Tigray. Last report, nearly 1 million have been facing famine condition. Right now, we're told that half of Tigray population could vanish if action is not taken simply from the lack of medicine and food. Imagine, that is a basic human right. That human right in Ethiopia has been grossly violated by Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea, and their generals. So the United States government, member of the House of Representatives, came together, 5 of them, as a House Committee on Foreign Affairs, discussed a bill called HR6600. And this bill simply will hold those who have committed atrocities and genocide in Tigray, sexual violence on women and girls in Tigray, accountable. It will stop the weapon flow into Tigray, into Ethiopia and Eritrea from the various actors such as United Arab Emirates, Turkey, China, Russia, and up until leading to the war in Ukraine, Ukrainian government was also selling to Ethiopia lighter weapons And we know that the Israeli security services were providing intelligence to the Ethiopian security services. These sort of support and violation will stop. Food and medicine will be allowed into Tigray when we enact HR6600. It also helps millions of other Ethiopians in other part of the country. In the Oromia region, there's drone use right now. There's people also dying in Beshangul Gumas, Gambela, Afar, and other part of the country. But the dire situation right now, number one, is in Tigray. For 16 months, it's been cut off 360-degree, being placed on Tigray to make sure that there's no access to the outside world. And they want to eliminate, there are 7.7 million people, according to Wikipedia, people inside Tigray, 7.7 million people. Out of the 7.7 million people, if we lose half of this population because we fail to act, then why do we even think we are human beings? This is, I mean, look at it in the Ukraine, what happened. Ukrainians are going through horrific situation right now. Russia has invaded that country, and that's been going on for about 3 weeks now, almost 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks. $13 billion has been placed to help them from just the United States government, 13.6 billion. Tigray has not received 1 billion from the United States government. That is humanitarian aid. We are not criticizing, we are begging and pushing the government of the United States. For those of us who are citizens, including myself, as Americans, our responsibility is to reach out to member of Congress and tell them that there is a dire situation going on in Tigray, and the government of Ethiopia and Eritrea are using drones and other weapons to ethnically eliminate the people of Tigray. Eritrea has illegally entered into Tigray, so to do this for the young Tagaro in the diaspora, we need you to knock door to door. Have Americans sign this bill, 13 and up, petition rather. SJT is a website. If you go to sjt.org or SJT Tigray, and then on Google, it will come up. There's a petition. All you need is your first, last name, address, email, and then you submit that petition, and your name is added that you do not support atrocity, genocide in Ethiopia, and you want to support the communities who are in a dire situation to get food and medicine into Tigray and the rest of Ethiopia.
I think we might as well display it in the screen for the benefit of the people. I mean, the link, the website link you were just mentioning. Just on this one, there are groups also who are trying to advance a very concerted effort to oppose this bill. I mean, it's just a common sense that there's nothing to oppose in it. It calls for accountability and sanctions on those who are still calling for the war to continue, and all these horrible atrocities they committed on the people of Ethiopia and or wherever the war is. Tigray is also part of it. So why do you think there are people interested in opposing it?
Well, it's very simple, obvious, because number one, they are part of the problem because they are financially supporting the regime in Arat Kilo, that is, purchasing weapons from outside the country to use it on civilians in Tigray and Oromia and other part where they're fighting. Number two, what this bill will do is it will stop the flow of weapons into Ethiopia that's been used on civilians, as I mentioned earlier. Well, but most importantly, the people they are supporting. By the way, let's actually clarify this again. This does not reflect on TMH. This is my personal view. So here's what's happening. So far, we mobilize with the diaspora young generation, and what we discover is everyone who is an Ethiopian descent residing outside Ethiopia, with the exception of within communities within the Amhara region, are supporting it anonymously. They were objecting at first because they were hearing false propaganda saying, oh, this is going to destroy Ethiopia's economy. This is actually sanctioned on Ethiopia, not on the government. And they have 3 different petitions going on, pretending that they're trying to save Ethiopia and objecting this bill because what that means is that when you have weapon flows blocked, when you have the government who's committing genocide on civilians, it was not as bad as what's happened in Tigray, but we saw what happened in Rwanda in 1995, the atrocity that took place there. 800 to 1 million people died. Yugoslavia was an example. The West acted on it. That's what we're pushing the United States government. So what it means basically is that the countries, including the ones that I mentioned, Turkey, China, Russia, Emirates, Iran, will not be able to sell weapons or donate weapons into Abiy Ahmed regime in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that is being utilized on civilians. The specific language on the bill that is concerning them, which it should, because when you support a genocider, then it makes sense because you'll be held accountable. So if there are business beneficiaries, they're providing other sales to Ethiopia, they too will be impacted by it. Because if you are independent, you're not involved with the government of Ethiopia, that specifically towards the war that's going on in Tigray and Oromia, it will not impact you. But those who are opposing it, they know this would mean when the weapon flow stops, everybody will be required and forced to come to the table, because militarily also, when the government, so I don't consider Ethiopia has a government at the moment, because election in Tigray for the national level was not held. Most of the Oromia region, Somalia region. So when we say Ethiopian government, we're going to say government because he claimed that he is elected, although the election was not genuinely utilized. And we do believe in democracy. And when you put all your opponents into jail, like Jawar Mohammed and others, and then you run an election that you have basically won 100%, because if you don't have anyone to oppose you, because you put those who oppose you in jail, and then the region that can stand against you, like most of the Oromia region and Tigray, outside that political arena, of course, yeah, you win easily. I mean, that's obvious reason. So they are utilizing what have happened in the Derg era and Haile Selassie era and Menelik era. I mean, what they've done is oppression and utilize their false narrative to rewrite history. They talk about the history of Adwa, and we can go on and on, right? So these facts now, they are amplified by the young generation in the diaspora, because technology has evolved. And when they are also using hate speech, like Daniel Kubert is one example I can give, a diakon, right? He's advisor to the prime minister of Ethiopia, and he's literally talking about wiping out the history of Tagaru, including everything that's built in the last 27 years by Tigray. Although it was an APRDF-led government, TPLF is just simply a Tigray regional government that represents the region of Tigray and had to play a role at the federal level, although it has an opportunity in 1991 to actually be a dictator, but it chose not to. It was inclusive system created. Was it perfect? Of course not. I mean, but you can change it by working together. But they use the narrative to come to Tigray to get rid of 72 or 74 leadership of the Tigray government. And then the atrocity we see today is actually on millions of Tigrayans who are civilian that have nothing to do with the war on the ground. So we have to define this. We have to make sure that when they are defending something that is not defendable, HR6600, you cannot defend it when it says it's peace, democracy, and stability, and to bring independent investigation into Ethiopia to investigate the alleged crime.
Exactly, and then there are other stuff like calling it a genocide, determining it to be a genocide in nature, and then the allowing the flow of humanitarian aid unfettered, and then there is this investigation to all atrocities and uphold accountability. These are, I think, once the young people with all this technology, and they're all very fast and savvy, and then they can do a lot of help on this once they understood. So how do you want them to be involved, the youngsters? How do you want them to take it to their own peers and of all persuasions in schools, in wherever they work, and then involve also others that are non-Ethiopians or non-Tigrayans?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I want them to emphasize is this bill, simply HR 6600, is to stop the war in Ethiopia. they need to just focus on that. It's to end the crisis in Ethiopia, number one. Number two, it will allow humanitarian aid into Tigray and the rest of the country in Ethiopia again. Food and medicine. Simple as that. That's number two. Number three, it would allow for independent investigators to go and investigate what happened in Ethiopia, right? So if those three things are emphasized, what is the objection? If you you don't have to be a politician. I'm not a politician. I spent most of my life in the diaspora here in the United States. I was born in Tigray, and I've never said I'm Tigrayan until November 4th, 2020, when I saw the atrocities in Ethiopia. I mean, my emotions change, and of course, I start saying Ethiopian American, but at the end of the day, Tigray is Ethiopia. So we're not really there's not this narrative of to peel up this and that. Is that bottom line is those three objectives is what we need to emphasize. And then to make it this work, we have, you go from Facebook to Twitter to TikTok to Instagram, and we can go on. So all these platforms that we in the diaspora are utilizing it, we need to tag a well-known reporters, a well-known politician around the world when we are actually doing the hashtag, when we're sharing things, what's happening. This bill is available on www.congress.gov. If we are able to link that website, actually most Western society, they would actually click on it and they will read it. And when they read the bill, they'll understand that they don't have to take our word for it, that we have no hidden agenda. We meaning as those of us who are activists, those who are pushing this bill to pass and to end the atrocities in Ethiopia, we have no hidden agenda. What we want is, we do not want Ethiopia to fall apart. That's not what we're advocating. We want every community in Ethiopia to have equal opportunity and safety. So when the young community, the young diaspora, Tagara particularly, my message to you is, we're not saying we're going to put Tigray on the top of the map and then we're going to destroy Ethiopia. No, we never say that. We're not going to say that. We are saying equal opportunity to all Ethiopians and the millions of Tigrayans who need food. This will help when the war ends, the fighting ends. The communities throughout Tigray and throughout Ethiopia who are in a dire situation, the international community will be able to help to bring food and medicine. And then last thing I'll say real quickly, UN passed a resolution December of last year. It it's interesting, it goes hand in hand with HR6600. On March 2nd, just a couple weeks, just within the last 2 weeks, they actually picked three investigators to investigate the alleged crime. These are very distinguished scholars who, one of them was the chief prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, the ICC, and the two ladies from Africa, Kenya and Zambia, and they were American educated, and the third person is an American. These are independent, have no interest in Ethiopia. They will go in and investigate the alleged crimes. So these are the emphasis that we need to remind people why HR6600 is a key to stop the genocide in Tigray. But when genocide is investigated and declared, everyone who has hands on the atrocities in Ethiopia, the Tigray region in particular, would be brought to justice. So the opposition who are opposing it, they don't want those who committed atrocity and genocide in Tigray region of Ethiopia hold accountable. So when you counter to the other side, let's take out the emotions. It's painful, right? But that's not what we are doing right now. What we wanted to do is amplify this all over the spectrum of who is following us, who is watching this, the world. We need the Oromo community at large. Those are Eritreans. I know sometimes, my brothers and sisters from Tigray region, they're not happy because what Eritreans did. But we're focused on the humanitarian aspect of it. We focus on stopping the war. We have leaders, politicians that can play the role of politics, but we as civilians in the diaspora, it is not our role to say, oh, TDF should do this and this should happen. No, let's focus on the humanitarian aspect of it. And when we address this to our fellow citizens around the globe, they will understand that humanity comes first.
Miki Tigray, thank you for coming in and then explaining and sharing those thoughts around HR6600. Thank you. كورات تملكتي مس ميكي تجراي بزعبة هاوس ريزولوشن 6600 تحس عن ترجمان ناتنا تصادفوا تايك مثل كم زلون بزملكت مبري هيبونا له زيادة لب نولن سنة سلسة نحكم يغني الناس خاتمون تحنكم
Thank you.